is one of the world's leading advocates for the rights of indigenous people. You can find out more about Anaya and CU Boulder's Indian Law Center by going to kgnu.org and choosing the Listen to Past Shows button, and then today's morning magazine. On that page there at KGNU, we'll have some links for you, which you can use for getting more information. It's 8:20. Up next, we'll be talking about the strange case of Jeff Neering and the sentencing hearing happening today. Was he targeted as an African American, or was he fairly convicted? We'll find out more in just a bit. Stay tuned. It's 8:21. In the weather, expect partly cloudy skies, hardly any chance of rain or snow, and spring-like temperatures, meaning highs in the 50s through Sunday. There's not supposed to be much wind, but this being the Front Range, you never know. And right now, it's not known how the Boulder County courts will rule at 2 p.m. this afternoon when they decide how much time Jeffrey Neering will serve for his second-degree murder conviction. Neering could serve up to 32 years for that crime. What kind of sentencing is appropriate for Neering depends on what story you've heard about him. On the one hand, Neering has been convicted for slashing another man's throat with a knife, enough that his victim did require stitches. On the other hand, Neering was considered a standout student at Naropa, even though he was struggling with bipolar disorder and alcohol abuse. Friends don't condone what he did, but say that he wasn't really planning to do a murder. It was instead more of a college brawl that got out of hand. And with more to talk about this issue is Pastor Pat. Pastor Pat Bruns from the First United Methodist Church of Boulder. Pat, why is it that you all have held a candlelight vigil and you're marching to the sentencing hearing today? Why are you at the United Methodist Church? Why does this case matter to you?
This case matters to us for a couple of reasons. One, I think, as I've come to understand the circumstances of Jeffrey Neering's the alleged assault on the Hill and what happened that night, I think there are a lot of questions. I think of this as a drunken brawl between four large men, one of whom was black. And the black man was the one singled out for accusation of attempted murder and first-degree assault. The facts don't add up for me. We know that knives were involved, but there was no knife ever recovered that Jeff might have used at that time. Certainly was an unfortunate incident, but I think it was escalated beyond what happened at that time.
In fact, you mentioned to me that there was a knife that was found, but it was found on somebody else.
Oh yeah, the only knife recovered belonged to one of the white males who were involved, of the four who were involved in the altercation. I understand the chain of custody was compromised. That knife was returned to the owner and then later reclaimed so that it could be part of the court proceedings.
And there was something about a police officer who was involved in the brawl?
As I understand it, one of the these white men involved in the brawl, was a off-duty Aurora, Colorado police officer.
Well, those details strike you as a little fishy.
Well, what they do for me is raise a lot of questions, and the questions are, why in this very complex situation would a large African-American male be the one person singled out as the aggressor? In the couple of days I spent in the courtroom, there was enough testimony for me to raise some interesting questions about how did this fight start, how long did it last. It seems that there was some tension that was created earlier in that evening and that just continued through the evening. So it raises real concerns, and for me in First United Methodist Church of Boulder, with our commitment to inclusiveness and justice, particularly for those who are marginalized by our dominant culture in our political system, and African Americans would be marginalized in Boulder, we need to take special interest in these kinds of cases, not only for Jeffrey Neering's sake, but also as we try to create a more inclusive, decent, loving community for all persons, where all persons are valued as having worth.
And so you feel that there might have been an element of racial profiling in
I
this.
I think there could well have been. It's not my place to judge guilt or innocence, and I am not an expert on the facts of the case. But I believe there's enough out there for us to have conversation about racial profiling, how that takes place in the city of Boulder, how that operates within our community, and what we might do to become more inclusive and fair.
Now, right now, your church is there at the corner of Spruce and 14th Street, First United Methodist Church.
Right.
And at 1 p.m., you're inviting people to join you there to get ready for a walk to the Boulder courthouses, which are at 6th and Canyon.
That's correct. At 1 p.m. we'll gather at First United Methodist Church, and we'll have a short time of interfaith centering prayer, and then we'll all march down to the courthouse and be present for the sentencing hearing.
And what is your hope at the sentencing hearing? Will you be allowed inside the courtroom, or will you have to be outside? How does this go?
I have not thought about that. I was assuming we'd be allowed in, but depending on the numbers, there may be some restrictions. My hope is that this visible witness from the community will have an impact on the judge as he considers sentencing of Jeff.
And so your hope is that courthouse, you have to go through some screening to get through their,
Right.
basically their gun check, but it's like the airport. You can get through it fairly quickly. So you're hoping that there'll be plenty of people to come into this public sentencing hearing.
Right. We want to do two things. We want to show our support for Jeff. We want to advocate for, in religious language we would call it mercy, but leniency, that the circumstances of this case indicate that leniency in terms of sentencing should be in place. But we also want to make this event part of an ongoing dialogue in our community about racism and prejudice and white privilege, and the ways we need to be honest about the realities in Boulder, and the ways we do exclude, the ways we do judge, and the ways we do condemn just based on race or first language group, and maybe make some changes that would bring us into the future in a great way.
Thank you for joining us, Pastor Pat from United Methodist Church. You can join that rally at 1 p.m. at the church. The sentencing hearing is at 2 p.m. at the Boulder County Courts at 6th and Canyon. Thank you and good luck.
Thanks. Good to be here.
It's 8:27. Let's go now to Jim Hightower.
How did that go?